When it comes to the new Go line of Onyx devices, Onyx seems to be taking a drastically different approach, more so with the 10.3 than the 7-inch. The 7-inch color is a little bit less impressive. But what they've done is they have stepped into a subsector that exists within our industry, simplistic distraction-free devices, already occupied by the likes of Remarkable and Fujitsu, etc. But what they've done is they've taken their Note line and removed every conceivable feature. This thing has no waterproofing, it has no SD, it's got no fingerprint unlock, it's got no glow light on it. There's very little that makes this an Onyx Boox tab, and it's very uncharacteristic of the company, but they've actually shaved off a considerable amount of money to allow this to get into your hands quicker. It's also incredibly thin at 4.4 millimeters, making it thinner than the Remarkable and thinner than the Hanvon, which is one of the thinnest units that is of this level of capabilities. Now, I believe that what they've done is they just got too carried away with their Note line and their Note Air and their Tab Ultra C, Tab Ultra C Pro, Tab X. They just threw too many specs, too many features at the wall to the point where there was nowhere left for them to go. So what did they do? They took a step back and simplified their approach. Checking out the build of this thing, it's pretty simplistic and just features a lot of the same kind of colors we've seen since 2020 that everyone since has adopted, like Hanvon and Remarkable and Onyx and MeBook and etc. It's just kind of this light gray, cream on cream on cream. And the back, though, is where it gets interesting. This is taking a page out of the book of Xiaomi, in which they go with a leather backing, just like the W7. They also have this kind of nice defining strip that carries over onto the color variant as well. Not the color 10.3, but the color 7. The biggest draw is that this thing is razor thin at 4.4 millimeters, outclassing the 5 millimeter Remarkable thickness and the 5.9 millimeter Quaderno thickness. So in terms of the build, it is incredibly thin, all things considered, and that they still have stereo speakers on the bottom is nothing short of a miracle. Something else that caught our eye is the pen. No, not this one. This is the Nova Air pen, but this one, matching the color scheme of the new unit. They've gone with a gray, kind of a light gray scheme, which is quite nice, and you can still take the back off and open the unit itself with a really long Phillips head screwdriver. This thing is much the same as the last generation, but is it any heavier? This is something we need to figure out because it could be a gram in either direction. So the previous unit, when it comes to the pen, is 13 grams, and the new one is 13 grams. So it's pretty much the same thing, just using a different shell. They're also using the exact same tips, so you don't have to worry about that. They are completely cross-compatible, and they no longer use those conical nibs. Now, how light is this unit? Now, just for frame of reference, a typical tablet e-note is around 300, and a typical e-reader is 200. This one is coming in at 375, so it's right where it needs to be. It is not feather light, but it is paper thin. For the UI, on the left you get library, store, notes, storage, and apps. Apps is going to be your applications, and this is going to be the most familiar part of using an Android device. Now, we wanted to focus on a little bit more of the things that make this unique rather than just the usual how-tos of a user interface. Now, you have some cool things here, and we'll start with E-Ink Center. E-Ink Center, of course, you have your 4 speed modes, normal, speed, A2, and X, but you can actually go to more and fully customize everything from system refresh, drag to refresh, when scrolling, current app, animation filter time. So all of this is going to only apply to normal and Regal only, but it is going to adjust things, and it gives you a lot more functionality than other devices. You can also turn on anti-flicker, which BigMe has kind of already done way back when. They have also taken something out of the book of BigMe, and they have mimicked global handwriting, which is free write, which basically means you can draw over any element on the screen, and it will then save it to your device storage. So BigMe's been doing this for quite some time, and Onyx wanted to get on board, and you know, success recognizes success, and that is a very good feature, because what that means is on applications where you're not allowed to use your pen, now you can. You also have Kids Mode, which requires you to sign into an Onyx account, but once you do, you can kind of skin the device to be a kids mode, kids centric kind of experience. You also have AI assistance, so you can say write a story, explain a sentence, and the usual chat GPT thing will just go through and be smarter than any human to ever have existed. Also, final thing on the back end here is that you do have everything that makes this kind of like a cell phone tablet. You have location, you have hotspot, you have Wi-Fi, you have airplane mode, so you can actually do a lot with this unit outside of just using it as a regular eNote, because they're trying to play both sides of the stage here when it comes to being simplistic but also having as much features as possible. Location is really useful because that means you can track your Google Map timeline and see where you've been through basically every day as long as location is on. Speaking of Google Play, you do have Play Store and Play Books, which allows you to get millions of applications at your fingertips. The e-reading experience is only going to be as good as the app you're using. For example, if we use Google Play Books, which I personally like, I'm not advocating for it, but I just like them. They're very robust and they give you a lot of features. It's pretty much the same experience as you'll find in most places. You have your highlights, you have your translate, you have your dictionary definition down below. Also, you might notice it's a little stainy, and that's because we're on X mode. So if we go to normal or regal, it just becomes very nice. Now, there's something that we want to preface before we move any forward, is that this doesn't have a glow light, as we've mentioned, but what that means is that their screen is right up on the surface. If this didn't have a pen layer, this would be a very, very kind of flush experience. So what that means is there's very little shadow distinction between the side bezel and the actual screen surface. It's very much at the top of the stack, which is very much appreciated, except the fact that that comes with the very underlying terrible connotation that you have now no glow light, which honestly is the biggest thing that would prevent me from buying this, is the fact that it doesn't have a glow light. Not having a glow light nowadays is really no excuse, and that's been proven by 98% of manufacturers. But I digress. Let's tap in the middle and see what we can see. Now, with Google Play Books, you can't take notes on it, and you might say, oh no, well that's not good, I can't take my notes. Well, as we mentioned, you do have free write. So when you do free mark, you can now click on something, and it takes precedence. That's on the very top layer of all the user interface elements. So I can now take notes on anything I wish and then save that as a screenshot to my device storage, much like you can with anything. You can pause a game and take notes on it and maybe tell people when you're developing something and say, hey, I want to change this, that, and the other thing. So it does give you a lot of real world use cases by having free mark. When it comes to manga on this unit, it is a little big because typically manga is around the screen size that a lot of companies emulate, which is 7 inches, which is the same as the Go 7. So with this, you get more of a North American comic book store graphic novel-esque size and less of an actual convenience store manga experience, but it is still very nice. And when you use things like Google Play Books, you can double tap the screen bubbles and stuff like that, and it's actually going to expand, and it keys itself out too. So it's a very nice feature, and why I continue to use Google Play, and a lot of people at Goody Reader here really prefer Google Play because they have the latest books and they also have the best features blanket across the board, and it's very integrated into the core makeup of Google Play enabled devices. So Manga's decent. There's nothing really negative to say whatsoever. It has enough PPI to grab you through the whole process. Now, one of the downsides is, again, the cons just keep piling up with this unit, honestly, and it's an objective fact. I mean, this doesn't even have the latest screen technology, and iReader and Onyx themselves have already been dabbling in Carta 1300, and this doesn't have it. So you lose a lot of that contrast boost, you lose a lot of that refresh boost, and you're using, technically speaking, an older screen technology versus the newer screen tech that is available that this company included has already been implementing into their units. Another benefit of the Onyx is that anytime you put something in this unit, it automatically organizes everything. So I just sideloaded a PDF into the device root storage, and it automatically puts it into documents. Just letting you know, out of the 64 gigs, you only get 50 usable, and out of that, there's some system storage, so you only get 48. So keep that in mind if you're grabbing this. PDFs, if you open it up with Onyx Books Neo Reader, you can take notes right out of the gates. There is no need to do free mark You don't have to utilize any sort of overlaying element to take notes. It's right out of the gates. It's quite nice. Now, there's nothing really much to say about the PDF experience. You can do pinch and zooms, although you have to unlock it. I don't know why they've done that. At least this time they have given you a prompt. Before, you had to go into 3 different settings to find out how to do that. I don't know why they locked that. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It's one of... You show someone a photograph, a physical photograph, and they try to pinch and zoom it. I mean, on a tablet, that should go without saying. It should be already integrated. Now, when you swipe, it's pretty refreshy, of course, but you can mitigate that by going into the different speed modes. You can also use the app's refresh settings. Now, one thing we want to show you is split screen mode, because this is a big enough unit to warrant that application. And what you would do is you swipe down, and then you go split screen, and it basically works system wide. You can do horizontal mode or vertical mode. I'll choose vertical for now, and what that'll do is it'll open something on the top and something on the bottom, and on the bottom you can do notepad, you can go to your applications, etc. So it gives you a split UI element. It doesn't just utilize 2 pages of PDFs or PDF and Note. You can actually choose. So you can have your browser at the bottom watching a YouTube video and still have the ability to take notes and read PDFs and have whatever on top. You can do 2 different video streaming softwares. You can do 2 books. It doesn't really matter. It completely leaves it up to you. When it comes to the note-taking experience on an Onyx, it's almost unfair. And what we mean by that is they have everything. And it's an undisputed fact, it's an objective fact. They have every single feature and no one else comes close. Bigme kind of comes close, but it's not a contest. You have 5 different pens up top, which they took a page out of the book of Fujitsu, because they can actually have 2 pens on a Fujitsu. You have like a pencil and then, you know, a marker or something like that. But they have implemented now 5 pens, which is really nice because that means you can toggle between. You can do pencil, you can do fountain pen, you can do marker, you can do paintbrush, etc. Now, all of this has very low latency, which means it's very quick, but the downside is that the pen they give you has no eraser at the back, and if you go to pencil, there's no tilt. And those are 2 pretty big things, honestly, no tilt and no eraser. So in terms of the note-taking immediate accessibility of what you can do, it's these little things that they don't have a secondary button or a double tap like a Huawei or a back button or anything like that. So you're gonna have to buy another pen that actually has an eraser at the back. So it's just these little things that really make and judge and change your purchase decision. But where it should not is that they have, as we said, every conceivable feature. They have all these layers plus template layer. They have canvas. You can stretch your canvas in either direction. You can even do custom cropping and custom stretching. This is my favorite part, shape. And this cannot be understated. From a drafting perspective, from a planning perspective, you can't get better than this. If I needed to make a square with a thick line in light gray with an inconsistent dotted pattern, no one else but Onyx can do that. And it's so quick. It would take you forever to draw those lines using a straight edge. You'd have to crack out your set of French curves you got in high school in order to accomplish that. If I wanted to do a full thickness circle in black with a completely kind of zipper dotted line, you can do that. And it's so just stupidly quick. And that they've implemented this small change to allow you to instantly get that done is just, it's invaluable. If we wanted to do a closed circle, we can move on to fill, which is really nice. And this is kind of like paint bucket from, well, your paint application. If you click it, it instantly colors it in. And that's a very kind of quick jump of coloring something in that a lot of manufacturers actually don't give you. You also have the usual lasso tools, and everything's going to give you prompts because we've obviously just cracked this open. But when you do a lasso, you can move it around. You can do tags, link, undo, redo, change the colors. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. You can also change the page, and you can turn on or off gesture, but that's not really too much of an issue because even though you have gesture on or off, you can still draw even when you have 5 points on the screen. So you don't need to turn off and on gesture, but there's a bunch of things you can do like pinch and zoom, slide to drag the page, etc. Now, one thing I must mention is that their planning was a little bit off when it came to the overall spacing. You can see that everything's cut off on the side, the C, the T, the S, etc. And again, you know, we're splitting hairs because it's our job, but it is covered up by the bezel, so there was an alignment issue from factory. But again, that's a small thing. Now, if you go to the more, this is where it's going to get very useful. Share and export. Share and export is very nice because what this allows you to do is take anything you've just done, for example this, and you click export. It's now going to be going through your entire device, and it's going to ask you how you would like to share that. And it's going to go through all of your apps that'll show up. And if you had Google Drive, if you had OneDrive, if you had Outlook, if you had Gmail, all those are going to show up. You could do Facebook Messenger, draw something, give someone a big smiley face and send it to your buddy, and they would get it on their Facebook Messenger on their phone instantly. So there's a very good level of international communication with these guys. They don't lock you into proprietary applications like some in-house manufacturers do. These guys just allow the share to scan your entire unit. You can even print it right off there. So anything you draw, you can instantly print it. And it comes in handy when it comes time to signing documents, etc. Now, the pen on paper feel is not good on this. It's just kind of slippery. There's not a whole lot of grip. It's nothing that's really gonna be innovative to the point where you're like, wow, this is changing the game. It's really just the same old tips, and this is a fairly slippery, non-textured surface. It's not quite as bad as a piece of glass. A piece of glass is very slippery, but you don't have a whole lot of writing feel on this. You get some noise, but honestly, it's not enough to make it say, wow, this is the newest possible thing. You must have this, but it gets the job done. I gotta say, I had my doubts about these speakers. These are incredibly tiny. This is like thinner than a Tic Tac, but they have packed some potential in these. It doesn't peak, it's not crackly, and it actually has bass, surprisingly. It kind of fills a room. If you had 2 or 3 groups of people with conversation, it would get drowned out, but on its own, you could have this next to your desk as just a dedicated music player. There's no problem with that. I am honestly surprised at how good the speakers are. I was very worried at this being 4.4 millimeters thick, but honestly, good job, Onyx. When it finally comes down to it, how do we feel about the Note Go? Well, it's really trying to play the best of both sides of the situation. It is trying to be a distraction-free device, which it does, and it's trying to be a feature-packed, Google Play-enabled e-note with a Wacom layer, and it does. It's got stereo speakers, it's thin, it's very nice to hold, so really they have hit the best of both worlds in a way. I know it's a hard balancing act to get a low price point and still have all the features, but not having a glow light hurts it to the nth degree. One of the gripes of people that buy Remarkable devices and buy Fujitsu Quadernos is that there is no glow light. You can't use it at night, and that is one of the factors that holds this back from being truly perfect. So in the end, we're going to give this an 8 out of 10. It is almost there, it is steps away, but they are straddling the fence between having a low price point and giving you everything that their current Note line has. It was basically Onyx saying we had to do something except just incrementally update RAM, incrementally update storage, add a feature, take away a feature, put a camera, take away a camera. There was really nowhere left for them to go in terms of a next release device, so they had to get super creative, which I believe they have done with this. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below as per usual. Stay tuned for everything coming from goodyreader.com, and as always, thanks for watching.